The curious observers, Captain Alina Reyes, stood quietly on the bridge of the USS Valiant, her hands clasped behind her back as she gazed out at the endless expanse of space. The stars stretched before them like scattered diamonds on black velvet, their light traveling millions of years to reach this remote corner of the galaxy. She had been staring at the same view for 3 hours now, watching for any sign of movement along the disputed border between human and Krillian space. The bridge was unusually quiet for a warship of the Valiant's size. Only the soft hum of life support systems and the gentle beeping of monitoring equipment broke the silence. Most of the crew was going about their duties with the practiced efficiency of veterans, but Alina could sense the underlying tension that came with border patrol duty. Everyone knew that this stretch of space had been peaceful for only 2 years, and peace in the galaxy was always fragile. Commander Marcus Chen approached. From the navigation station, his footsteps barely audible on the deck plating. He had served as Elena's first officer for 3 years, and she had learned to read his moods from the way he moved. Today, his shoulders were relaxed, but his eyes held the alertness of someone who had seen too many quiet patrols turn dangerous. Without warning, status report, Marcus Alina said without turning from the viewport. All systems nominal, Captain. We're maintaining our patrol route at 1/4 impulse power. Engineering reports, all for fusion reactors, are stable, though Chief Bradley is still grumbling about running only one at minimal output. Marcus paused at her side, following her gaze into the starfield. The crew is restless. It's been for months since we've had any real action. Alina nodded slowly. The USS Valiant was one of the newest and most powerful ships in the human fleet. But to look at it now, an observer would see only a peaceful patrol vessel drifting lazily through space. 3 of its 4 massive fusion reactors were completely shut down, their immense power held in reserve. The ship's formidable weapon systems were powered down and locked in their storage positions. Even the shields were running at minimal strength, just enough to deflect cosmic debris. This was all by design. The Valiant's mission was to patrol the border between human and Krillian territory, maintaining a visible presence while avoiding any actions that might be interpreted as aggressive. The peace treaty between the 2 species specifically required both sides to avoid shows of force near the border. What the treaty didn't mention was that it also created the perfect opportunity for gathering intelligence. Lieutenant Sofia Valdez turned from her sensor station, her dark hair catching the light from her displays. She was the ship's chief sensor officer, a position that had become increasingly important as first contact situations became more common. Captain, I'm detecting a vessel approaching from Krillian space. Distance approximately 5 million kilometers and closing slowly. Alina felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came with potential contact situations. What can you tell me about it, Sophia? Working on it, Captain. Sophia's fingers danced across her console as she refined the sensor readings. It's definitely Krillian in origin, roughly class. The computer identifies it as a scout configuration, probably carrying advanced sensor arrays and minimal weapons. Marcus stepped closer to the sensor station. Are they in our territory? Negative, sir. They're staying well within their own space, but they're definitely heading in our direction. Sophia paused as new data appeared on her screen. I'm reading. Approximately 50 life signs aboard. Standard crew complement for a Krillian scout vessel. Alina considered this information carefully. The Krillians were not enemies, but they were not exactly friends either. They were a cautious species, known for their methodical approach to everything they did. Their scouts were famous throughout the galaxy for their ability to gather detailed intelligence without being detected. The fact that this one was approaching openly suggested they wanted to be seen. "How long until they reach the border?" Alina asked. "At their current speed, approximately 2 hours, Captain." Alina moved to the center of the bridge, her mind already working through the various scenarios that might unfold. They could be conducting a routine patrol of their own territory, or they could be testing human responses to their presence. Either way, the situation required careful handling. "Marcus, bring the ship to yellow alert. Nothing aggressive, just make sure all departments are ready for whatever comes next." She turned to the communications station. "Lieutenant Park, monitor all frequencies. I want to know the moment they try to contact us." The next 2 hours passed slowly. The Krillian scout ship maintained its steady approach, eventually stopping at a position exactly 1 million kilometers from the border. It was close enough to get excellent sensor readings of the human vessel, but far enough away to avoid any accusations of aggressive behavior. Sophia's voice cut through the bridge's tension. "Captain, the Krillian ship has stopped. They're beginning sensor sweeps of our position." Alina felt the crew's attention focus on her. This was the moment that would determine whether the encounter remained peaceful or escalated into something more dangerous. "What kind of scans are they running?" "Basic sensor sweeps, Captain. They're reading our hull composition, power output, and general configuration. Nothing that would be considered intrusive under the treaty." Alina nodded. This was standard procedure for both species when encountering each other near the border. The Krillians had every right to study the human ship as long as they stayed in their own territory and didn't attempt to penetrate classified systems. "Let them look," Alina said calmly. "Make sure all our classified systems are properly shielded, but don't do anything that might be interpreted as hostile." On the Krillian scout ship, Commander Zexthora studied the sensor readings with growing interest. The human vessel was large, nearly twice the size of his own ship, but it was operating at what appeared to be minimal power. Only one of its fusion reactors was active, and even that was running at barely 30% capacity. The weapon systems showed no energy signatures, and the shields were so weak they would barely stop a meteorite. Zexthora had studied human military capabilities ostensibly during his years in the Krillian intelligence service. According to their files, human warships were formidable opponents, capable of devastating firepower and remarkable speed. But the vessel before him looked more like a cargo hauler than a warship. Either human military technology was far inferior to their intelligence estimates, or this particular ship was trying very hard to appear harmless. "Continue the scans," Zex ordered his sensor officer. "I want complete readings on their propulsion systems, crew complement, and defensive capabilities." The sensor officer worked diligently at his station, directing the ship's scanning beams toward the human vessel. The data that came back was consistent with what they had already observed. The human ship was large but appeared to be poorly armed and minimally powered. It would make an easy target if the need ever arose. Back on the USS Valiant, Chief Engineer Tom Bradley was in the main engineering section, checking the status of the 3 fusion reactors that were currently offline. Each reactor was capable of producing enough power to run a small city, and together they could push the Valiant to speeds that would surprise most observers. But Bradley had strict orders to keep them cold and silent, their massive potential hidden behind sealed plasma conduits and inactive control systems. "It's like having a sleeping dragon," Bradley muttered to himself as he ran his diagnostic checks. All this power just waiting to wake up, and we're pretending to be a harmless merchant vessel. The engineering section was quiet except for the soft hum of the single active reactor. The Valiant's true capabilities were hidden not just from the Krillians, but from casual observation by anyone who might be watching. The ship's designers had gone to great lengths to make it appear unremarkable when running on minimal power. On the bridge, Alina watched the sensor displays as the Krillian scans continued. The alien ship was being thorough, but not aggressive. Exactly what she would expect from a professional intelligence-gathering operation. "How long have they been scanning us, Sophia?" "Approximately 4 hours, Captain. They're being very methodical about it." Alina considered whether to make contact. The Krillians had not attempted to communicate, which suggested they were content to observe from a distance. Sometimes the best diplomatic approach was to let the other side make the first move. "Captain," Lieutenant Park called from the communications station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Krillian vessel." Alina straightened in her command chair. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of the Krillian scout ship's bridge. Commander Zexthera appeared. On screen, his reptilian features calm and professional. The Krillians were a proud species, with scales that shifted color based on their emotional state. Zextheris's scales were a neutral green, indicating he was neither aggressive nor afraid. "This is Commander Zexthera of the Krillian scout vessel. Seeker of truth. We are conducting routine surveys of this sector in accordance with the territorial agreements between our species. We mean no harm to your vessel or crew." Alina stood and moved to face the screen. "This is Captain Alina Reyes of the USS Valiant. We acknowledge your survey mission and wish you success in your endeavors. Are you requiring any assistance?" "No assistance is necessary, Captain Reyes. We will complete our survey shortly and return to our patrol route. Your cooperation is appreciated." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. Alina had noticed something in the Krillian commander's tone that suggested he was pleased with what his sensors were telling him. That could be either good or bad, depending on what conclusions he was drawing. "Sophia, what do you think they're seeing when they scan us?" Alina asked. "From their perspective, Captain, we probably look like a minimally armed patrol vessel. Running on low power, they can't see our offline reactors or our stored weapons. To them, we might appear to be a much smaller threat than we actually are." Alina nodded slowly. This was the inherent danger of the Valiant's current mission profile. By appearing weak and peaceful, they risked encouraging aggressive behavior from species that might view humans as easy targets. The balance between diplomacy and deterrence was always delicate. "Keep monitoring them, Sophia. I want to know immediately if they change their scanning patterns or move closer to the border." As the day wore on, the Krillian scout ship completed its sensor sweeps and began moving away from the border. Alina watched it disappear into the depths of space, carrying with it data that would soon reach the highest levels of the Krillian government. She couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was more significant than it appeared. The USS Valiant resumed its patrol route, its powerful engines pushing the massive ship through space at a leisurely pace. To any observer, it looked like a routine patrol by a peaceful species interested only in maintaining stability along their borders. But beneath the ship's calm exterior, enormous power waited patiently for the moment when it might be needed. Alina returned to her quarters that evening with a sense of unease she couldn't quite explain. The encounter with the Krillian scout had gone exactly as planned, But something about Commander Zexthera's demeanor suggested he had learned more than he was supposed to. In the complex game of interstellar diplomacy, information was power, and Alina had the uncomfortable feeling that the Krillians now believed they held all the cards. She was about to discover just how wrong they were. The fatal miscalculation. 3 days had passed since the first encounter with the Krillian scout ship, and Captain Alina Reyes was beginning to hope that the incident had been nothing more than routine intelligence gathering. The USS Valiant continued its patrol along the border, maintaining the same peaceful appearance that had served them well for months. But Elena's instincts, honed by years of command experience, told her that something was about to change. She was reviewing patrol reports in her ready room when Commander Marcus Chen's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, please report to the bridge. We have a situation developing." Alina set down her coffee and hurried to the bridge, where she found the crew at their stations with expressions of heightened alertness. Lieutenant Sofia Valdez was hunched over her sensor console, her fingers moving rapidly across the controls as she refined her readings. "Report," Alina said, as she took her position in the center of the bridge. "Captain, we're detecting the same Krillian scout ship from 3 days ago. It's approaching from the same vector, but this time it's moving much faster and carrying additional equipment." Sophia's voice carried a note of concern that Alina had rarely heard from her normally. Calm, sensor officer, Alina felt her pulse quicken. The return of the same ship so soon after their first encounter was highly unusual. The Krillians were methodical in their approach to everything, and they rarely repeated actions unless they had a specific reason. "How different is their configuration from the first encounter?" Alina asked. "Significantly different, Captain. I'm reading at least 3 additional sensor arrays that weren't present before. The power signature from their scanning equipment has increased by approximately 400%. Sophia paused as new data appeared on her screen. "Captain, these are deep penetration scanners. They're designed to see through heavy shielding and hull plating." Marcus stepped closer to the sensor. "Station, are they still in Krillian space?" "Yes, sir, but they're taking up position much closer to the border this time. Distance is now 500,000 kilometers, and they're still approaching." Alina felt the familiar weight of command settling on her shoulders. The Krillians were escalating the situation, and she needed to decide how to respond. The peace treaty allowed both sides to conduct sensor sweeps in their own territory, but the use of deep penetration scanners was considered aggressive behavior by most military standards. "Sophia, what are our options for protecting our classified systems? We can increase power to our defensive screening systems, but that would require bringing at least 1 additional reactor online. The Krillians would definitely notice the power increase." Alina considered this carefully. Bringing additional power online would signal that the Valiant was more capable than it appeared, but it might also deter the Krillians from pushing further. On the other hand, it could escalate the situation into something more dangerous. "Hold position and maintain current power levels," Alina decided. "Let's see what they're really after before we show our hand." The Krillian scout ship reached its new position and immediately began scanning the USS Valiant with equipment far more sophisticated than anything they had used during their first encounter. The scanning beams were powerful enough to penetrate the ship's outer hull and begin probing the internal systems. On the Krillian ship, Commander Zexthera watched the incoming data with growing excitement. The deep scanners were revealing details about the human vessel that had been hidden during their first encounter. What he saw changed everything he thought he knew about human military capabilities. "Look at this," his sensor officer reported, with amazement. The human ship has 3 additional fusion reactors that are completely offline. Their power generation potential is at least 10 times what we observed during our first scan. Zexthora studied the readouts with professional interest. What about their weapon systems? The scans are still penetrating their hull, but I'm already seeing missile storage bays that were completely hidden before. There are at least 6 torpedo launchers built into their forward section, and what appear to be particle beam emitters concealed behind retractable hull plating. This was intelligence of the highest value. The human vessel was not the peaceful patrol ship it appeared to be. It was a heavily armed warship disguised as a harmless border guard. The implications were staggering. "Continue the deep scans," Zexthora ordered. "I want to know everything about their hidden capabilities. Map their reactor systems, weapon placements, and defensive measures. High Command needs to know what we're really dealing with." Back on the USS Valiant, the effects of the deep scanning were becoming apparent throughout the ship. Lieutenant Sophia Valdez watched her displays with growing alarm as the Krillian beams penetrated deeper into the ship's systems. "Captain, they're not just scanning our hull anymore. They're probing our internal systems, including our computer cores and reactor compartments." Sophia's voice was tight with tension. "They're trying to map our entire internal layout." Alina felt her patience beginning to wear thin. The Krillians had crossed the line from routine intelligence gathering to active preparation for combat. Deep scanning of reactor systems and weapon storage areas was the kind of intelligence gathering that preceded military action. "Are they accessing any of our classified databases?" Alina asked. "Not yet, Captain, but they're trying. Our security protocols are holding, but these scans are much more powerful than anything we've encountered before." Sophia paused as alarms began sounding at her station. "Captain, they're now probing our navigation systems and tactical computers. They're trying to access our patrol routes and strategic databases." Alina had heard enough. The Krillians were no longer conducting a peaceful survey. They were gathering intelligence in preparation for military action against human forces. The peace treaty allowed sensor sweeps, but it didn't allow attempts to access classified military information. "Marcus, bring the ship to red alert. All hands to battle stations." Elena's voice carried the authority of someone who had made a decision and would not be deterred. "Sophia, patch me through to Chief Bradley in engineering." "Bradley here, Captain," came the chief engineer's voice over the intercom. "Tom, I need you to bring reactors 2 and 3 online. Full power, maximum acceleration capability." There was a brief pause before Bradley responded. "Captain, that's going to light us up like a Christmas tree. Anyone watching will know we're not the peaceful patrol ship we've been pretending to be." "That's exactly what I want, Tom. The Krillians have pushed too far, and it's time they learned what they're really dealing with." Throughout the USS Valiant, the crew responded to the red alert with practiced efficiency. Blast doors sealed, weapon systems powered up, and the ship's 3 dormant fusion reactors began their startup sequences. The transformation from peaceful patrol vessel to combat-ready warship took less than 5 minutes. Chief Bradley watched from the main engineering section as massive amounts of energy began flowing through power conduits that had been cold for months. The ship's true power was awakening, and the change was dramatic. Reactors 2 and 3 coming online, Captain, were at full power and ready for anything. On the bridge, Alina watched the tactical displays as the Valiant's weapon systems came online one by one. Particle beam arrays extended from their concealed positions, missile launchers loaded with quantum torpedoes, and defensive shields strengthened to full combat power. The ship's sensor profile changed completely as it revealed its true nature. "Sophia, what are the Krillians doing now?" Alina asked. "They've stopped their deep scans, Captain. I think they're analyzing the data they've already collected." Sophia's voice carried a note of satisfaction. "They're also backing away from the border. Distance is now increasing to 750,000 kilometers." Alina smiled grimly. The Krillians had gotten exactly what they wanted: detailed intelligence about human military capabilities. But they had also revealed their own intentions in the process. The peaceful facade was over, and both sides now knew where they stood. "Open a channel." "To the Krillian ship," Elena ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Commander Zexthera's bridge. The Krillian commander's scales had shifted from neutral green to a deep blue, indicating surprise and wariness. He had clearly not expected the human ship to reveal its true capabilities. "Commander Zexthera," Elena began, her voice carrying the steel of command authority. "Your recent scanning activities have gone well beyond the parameters of peaceful observation. Attempting to access our classified military systems is a violation of both the peace treaty and basic diplomatic protocols." Zexthera's scales shifted to a darker blue as he processed the implications of what he was seeing. The human vessel before him was not the weak patrol ship his sensors had originally indicated. It was a formidable warship that had been deliberately concealing its true nature. "Captain Reyes, we were merely conducting routine surveys as permitted by the territorial agreements between our species," Zexthera replied, but his voice lacked the confidence it had held during their first encounter. "Routine surveys do not include attempts to penetrate classified computer systems or map reactor configurations for tactical purposes," Alina responded firmly. "Your actions suggest preparation for military operations against human forces." The silence that followed was pregnant with tension. Both commanders understood that they had moved beyond the realm of peaceful diplomacy into something far more dangerous. The Krillians had gathered intelligence that would be invaluable in any future conflict, but they had also revealed their intentions to a human commander who was clearly prepared to defend her territory. "We will withdraw from this sector and return to our patrol route," Zexthera finally said. "There has been a misunderstanding regarding the nature of our survey mission." Alina nodded slowly. "See that you do, Commander, and ensure that your superiors understand that human patience has limits. We prefer peace, but we are prepared for war if necessary." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Alina watched the tactical display as the Krillian scout ship accelerated away from the border, its mission of intelligence gathering complete. But she knew that this encounter had changed everything between the two species. "Sophia, continue monitoring their departure until they're completely out of sensor range," Alina ordered. "Marcus, maintain red alert status until we're certain they're gone." As the hours passed, the USS Valiant tracked the Krillian ship's withdrawal deep into their own territory. The scout vessel disappeared into the vast expanse of space, carrying with it detailed intelligence about human military capabilities that would soon reach the highest levels of the Krillian government. Alina remained on the bridge long after the alien ship had vanished, contemplating the implications of what had just occurred. The Krillians now knew that human ships were far more powerful than they appeared, but they had also revealed their own aggressive intentions. The careful balance of power along the border had been disrupted, and Alina suspected that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. Captain, Marcus said quietly, do you think we'll see them again? Alina looked out at the stars, thinking about the intelligence the Krillians had gathered and the message she had sent in return. Yes, Marcus. But next time, they'll come prepared for what they know we can do. The USS Valiant resumed its patrol route, no longer concealing its true nature. Its weapons remained powered and its shields stayed at full strength. The time for peaceful deception had passed. The galaxy was about to learn that human patience, while considerable, was not infinite. And somewhere in the depths of space, Commander Zexthara was composing a report that would change the course of interstellar politics forever. The humans were not the weak species the Krillians had believed them to be. They were something far more dangerous, a peaceful people who were fully prepared to fight when pushed too far. The second scan had revealed the truth, but it had also triggered a response that would echo through the stars for generations to come.